Joanna.
This is
Joanna,
magic, everybody.
Hold on. Darling, I don't see your forehead.
Really? Well, I see my forehead.
Well, that's an issue because I don't know what other people are seeing. I can see you now. Do you see my forehead? I need to go down a bit.
Go. Yes.
Good evening and welcome to another crazy reading of 1,000 Lights. No, that's too.
Is that better? Hello.
Yeah, but
everybody.
I don't know what other people are seeing.
Everybody has to tell us what they're seeing.
Okay, whoever's watching, we would appreciate some feedback. I see somebody's watching.
That's really great that somebody's watching. I'm just trying to post it to 1001 Nights. Hold a minute.
Oh, Anita is writing, I don't see your forehead. Anita, dear, whose forehead?
That's because I'm leaning forward. That's because I'm leaning forward right now.
Okay, go back. Maybe a little further, Joanna. I think she's really missing your full beautiful face. There's still part of it missing.
I've got like this much gap between me.
Anita, is it Joanna's face you don't see? Joanna needs to move back. Thank you so much, Anita. A little further, because she's probably seeing what I see.
No, I just moved it. Is it okay now, Anita?
Maybe 5 inches she's writing more.
Really?
5 inches. Yeah.
Better? I'm like really small now on my screen.
Hitting the screen at. Like, you're like this.
Okay, hold on a minute.
You look great.
So do you.
Thank you. Anita is saying much better. Much better. That's perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Joanna Godwin-Seidl.
My name is Saman Giraud, and we welcome you to our reading of 1,001 Nights.
And what is special about tonight's reading, Saman Giraud?
You and your catchy questions. we finally reached the 500th night, which means that we are halfway through 1,001 Nights, and we started reading
20th of March 2020.
During lockdown.
And why did we start reading, Saman?
We started reading because we were not allowed to go after our jobs. Because we were in lockdown.
And how many people have we reached so far, Saman?
Oh my God, just get up with the numbers, Joanna, help me out. It's millions.
It's over 2.5 million. It's probably like over 3 million now, but you know, we're gonna...
Anita, happy halfway day, folks. Thank you, Anita. Someday post.
And you know what? The great thing is that some people are still listening in.
I know. Anita is one of our troopers. Anita.
Exactly.
I've met this woman in person. We will celebrate, Anita, someday. We will never forget you.
No, we will haunt you. We will come back to haunt you. So this is really cool, everybody, because I yesterday evening after my reading, I was like, now come on, tomorrow's I keep saying 500th night, 500th night, and we really should do something at least. But of course, you know, it's too late to do something really, really fast. So I called up Saman today and I said, how about if we got together and read, or spur of the moment, we found somewhere quickly where we could get together and read. And then Saman had this great idea, this technological advancement. This is like the modern ages of doing this. So we are both in our own homes, but joining you together. How magic is that?
I'm just replying to Anita. She said we're going to meet at the finale.
Oh my God.
That's in a year and a half from now, Anita.
Exactly.
All right. How about we start?
Let's start.
Joanna, thanks so much for being my partner in crime.
Without further ado, get going.
Okay. This is probably the easiest night to remember. Thank you for the heart. Okay. Now when it was the 500th night, she said, "It hath reached me, auspicious king, that King Bahram consulted his daughter and her mother and his kinsfolk, and they said, do what seemeth good to thee." So he returned straightway to the minister Ayn Zar and notified to him that his desire had been fulfilled. And the vizier abode with him 2 months, at the end of which time he said to him, "We beseech thee to bestow upon us that wherefore we came, so we may depart to our own land." "I hear and obey," answered the king. Then he prepared all the gear wanted for the wedding. And when this was done, he assembled his viziers and all his emirs and grandees of his realm, and the monks and priests who tied the knot of marriage between his daughter and King Teghmus by proxy. And King Bahram bade decorate the city after the goodliest fashion and spread the streets with carpets. Then he equipped his daughter for the journey and gave her all manner of presents and rarities and precious metals, such as none may describe. And Ayn Zar departed with the princess to his own country. When the news of their approach reached King Teghmus, he bade celebrate the wedding festivities and adorn the city. After which he went in unto the princess and abated her maiden head. Nor was it long before she conceived by him, and accomplishing her months, bare a man-child like the moon on the night of its fall. When King Teghmus knew that his wife had given birth to a goodly son, he rejoiced with exceeding joy, and summoning the sages and astrologers and mathematicians, said to them, "I would that ye draw the horoscope of the newborn child with his ascendant and its aspects, and acquaint me what shall befall him in his lifetime." So they made their calculations and found them favorable, but that he would, in his 15th year, be exposed to perils and hardships, and that if he survived, he would be happy and fortunate and become a greater king than his father and a more powerful. The king rejoiced greatly in this prediction and named the boy Janshah. Then he delivered him to the nurses, wet and dry, who reared him excellently well till he reached his 5th year, when his father taught him to read the Evangel and instructed him in the art of arms and lunge of lance and sway of sword, so that in less than 7 years he was wont to ride a hunting and a chasing. He became a doughty champion, perfect in all the sciences of the cavalries, and his father was delighted to hear of his knightly prowess. It chanced one day that King Teghmus and his son, accompanied by the troops, rode out for sport into the walls and wilds, and hunted till mid-afternoon of the 3rd day, when the prince started a gazelle of a rare colour which fled before him. So he gave chase to it, followed by 7 of King Teghmus' white slaves, all mounted on swift steeds, and rode at speed after the gazelle, which fled before them, till she brought them to the seashore. They all ran at her to take her as their quarry, but she escaped from them, and throwing herself into the waves, and Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased saying her permitted say.
Now, when it was the 501st night, she said, "It has reached me, O auspicious king, that when Janshah and the Mamelukes ran at the gazelle, to take her as their quarry. She escaped from them and, throwing herself into the waves, swam out to a fishing bark that was moored near the shore and sprang on board. Janshah and his followers dismounted and, boarding the boat, made prize of the gazelle and were minded to return to shore with her, when the prince espied a great island in the offing and said to his merry men, I have a longing to visit yonder island. They answered, we hear and obey, and sailed on till they came to the island, where they landed and amused themselves with exploring the place. Then they again embarked, and taking with them the gazelle, set out to return homeward. But the murk of evening overtook them, and they missed their way on the main. Moreover, a strong wind arose and drave the boat into mid-ocean, so that when they awoke in the morning, they found themselves lost at sea. Such was their case. But as regards King Tehmus, when he missed his son, he commanded his troops to make search for him in separate bodies. So they dispersed on all sides, and a company of them, coming to the seashore, found there the prince's white slave, whom he had left in charge of the horses. They asked him what was come of his master, and the other 6, and he told them what had passed. Whereupon they took him with them and returned to the king, and acquainted him with what they had learnt. When Tehmus heard their report, he wept with sore weeping, and cast the crown from his head, biting his hands for vexation. Then he rose forthright and wrote letters and dispatched them to all the islands of the sea. Moreover, he got together 100 ships, and filling them with troops, sent them to sail about in quest of Janshah, while he himself withdrew his troops to his capital, where he abode in sore concern. As for Janshah's mother, when she heard of his loss, she buffeted her face and began the mourning ceremonies for her son, making sure that he was dead. Meanwhile, Janshah and his men ceased not driving before the wind, and those in search of them cruised about for 10 days till, finding no trace, they returned and reported failure to the king. But a stiff gale caught the prince's craft, which went spooning till they made a second island, where they landed and walked about. Presently they came upon a spring of running water in the midst of the island, and saw from afar a man sitting hard by it. So they went up to him and saluted him, and he returned their salam, speaking in a voice like the whistle of birds. Whilst Janshah stood marvelling at the man's speech, he looked right and left, and suddenly split himself in twain, and each half went a different way. Then there came down from the hills a multitude of men of all kinds, beyond count and reckoning, and they no sooner reached the spring than each one divided into 2 halves and rushed on Janshah and his Mamelukes to eat them. When the voyagers saw this, they turned and fled seawards, but the cannibals pursued them and caught and ate 3 of the slaves, leaving only 3 who with Janshah reached the boat in safety. Then, launching her, made for the water and sailed nights and days without knowing whither their ship went. They killed the gazelle and lived on her flesh till the winds drove them to a 3rd island, which was full of trees and waters and flower gardens and orchards laden with all fashion of fruits. and streams strayed under the tree shade. Brief, the place, was a Garden of Eden. The island pleased the prince, and he said to his companions, "Which of you will land and explore?" Then said one of the slaves, "Well, that I will do." But he replied, "This thing may not be. You must all land and explore the place while I abide in the boat." So he set them ashore. And Scheherazade perceived the dawn of day and ceased to say her permitted say.
Now when it was the 502nd night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the prince set them ashore, and they searched the island east and west, but found no one. Then they fared on inland to the heart thereof, till they came to a castle compassed about with ramparts of white marble, within which was a palace of the clearest crystal, and set in its centre a garden containing all manner fruits beyond description, both fresh and dry, and flowers of grateful odor, and trees and birds singing upon the boughs. Amiddlemost the garden was a vast basin of water, and beside it a great open hall with a raised dais whereon stood a number of dais?
Yeah.
Whereon stood a number of stools surrounding a throne of red gold, studded with all kinds of jewels, and especially ruby. Seeing the beauty of the castle and of the garden, they entered and explored in all directions, but found no one there. So after rummaging the castle, they returned to Janshah and told him what they had seen. When he heard their report, he said, "Needs must I solace myself with a sight of it." So he landed and accompanied them to the palace, which he entered, marveling at the goodliness of the place. They then visited every part of the gardens and ate of the fruits, and continued walking till it waxed dark, when they returned to the estray and sat down, Janshah on the throne in the center, and the three others on the stools ranged to the right and left. Then the prince, there seated, called to mind his separation from his father's throne city and country, and friends and kinsfolk, and fell a-weeping and lamenting over their loss, whilst his men wept around him. And as they were thus sorrowing, behold, they heard a mighty clamour that came from seaward, and looking in the direction of the clamour, saw a multitude of apes as they were swarming locusts. Now the castle and the island belonged to these apes, who, finding the stranger's boat moored to the strand, had scuttled it, and after repaired to the palace, where they came upon Janshah and his man seated. Here the Serpent Queen again broke off her recital, saying, "All this, O Hazib, was told to Bulukia by the young man sitting between the two tombs." Quoth Hazib, "And what did Janshah with the apes?" So the queen resumed her tale. He and his man were sore affrighted at the appearance of the apes, but a company of them came up to the throne whereon he sat, and kissing the earth before him, stood a while in his presence with their paws upon their breasts in posture of respect. Then another troop brought to the castle gazelles, which they slaughtered and skinned, and roasting pieces of the flesh till fit for food, they laid them on platters of gold and silver, and spreading the table, made signs to Janshah and his men to eat. The prince and his followers came down from their seats and ate, and the apes ate with them till they were satisfied, when the apes took away the meat and set on fruits, of which they partook, and praised Allah the Most Highest. Then Janshah asked the apes by signs what they were and to whom the palace belonged. And they answered him by signals, "Know ye that the island belonged of yore to our Lord Solomon, son of David, on both of whom be peace. And he used to come hither once every year for his solace." Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased saying her permitted say.
Now, when it was the 503rd night, she said, "It has reached me, O auspicious king, that when Janshah asked the apes by signs to whom the palace belonged, they answered him by signals. Of a truth, this place belonged of yore to our Lord Solomon, son of David, on both of whom be peace, who used to come hither once every year for his solace, and then wend his ways." Presently, the apes continued, "And know, O king, that thou art become our sultan, and we are thy servants. So eat and drink, and whatso thou ever biddest, that we will do." So saying, they severely kissed the earth between the hands of Janshah, and all took their departure. The prince slept that night on the throne, and his men on the stools about him. And on the morrow, at daybreak, the 4 wazirs or captains of the apes presented themselves before him, attended by their troops, who ranged themselves about him, rank after rank, until the place was crowded. Then the wazirs approached and exhorted him by signs to do justice amongst them and rule them righteously, after which the apes cried out to one another and went away, all save a small party which remained in presence to serve him. After a while, there came up a company of apes with huge dogs in the semblance of horses, each wearing about his head a massive chain, and signed to Janshah and his 3 followers to mount and go with them. So they mounted, marveling at the greatness of the dogs, and rode forth, attended by the 4 wazirs and a host of apes like swarming locusts, some riding on dogs and others afoot, till they came to the sea shore. Janshah looked for the boat which brought him, and finding it scuttled, turned to the wazirs and asked how this had happened to it, whereto they answered, "Know, O king, that when thou camest to our island, we kenned that thou wouldst be sultan over us, and we feared lest ye all flee from us in our absence and embark in the boat. So we sank it." When Janshah heard this, he turned to his Mamelukes and said to them, "We have no means of escaping from these apes, and we must patiently await the ordinance of the Almighty." And they fared on inland, and ceased not faring till they came to the banks of the river, on whose other side rose a high mountain, whereon Janshah saw a multitude of gulls. So he turned to the apes and asked them, "What are these gulls?" And they answered, "Know, O king, that these gulls are our mortal foes, and we come hither to do battle with them. Janshah marveled to see them riding horses, and was startled at the vastness of their bulk and the strangeness of their semblance. For some of them had heads like bulls, and others like camels. As soon as the gulls espied the army of apes, they charged down to the river bank, and standing there, fell to pelting them with stones as big as maces, and between them thus befell a sore fight. Presently, Janshah, seeing that the gulls were getting the better of the apes, cried out to his men, saying, "Uncase your bows and arrows, and shoot at them your best shafts, and keep them off from us." They did so, and slew of the gulls much people, when there fell upon them sore of dismay, and they turned to flee. But the apes, seeing Janshah's prowess, forded the river, and headed by their sultan, chased the gulls, killing many of them in pursuit, till they reached the high mountain, where they disappeared. And while exploring the said mountain, Janshah found a tablet of alabaster, whereupon was written, "O thou who enterest this land, know that thou wilt become sultan over these apes, and that from them there is no escape for thee, except by the passes that run east and west through the mountains. If thou take the eastern pass, thou wilt fare through a country swarming with gulls and wild beasts, marids and ifrits, and thou wilt come after 3 months' journeying to the ocean which compasseth the earth. But if thou travel by the western pass, it will bring thee, after 4 months' journeying, to the head of the Wadi of Emet. When thou hast followed the road that leads through this mountain 10 days," and Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased saying her permitted say. There we go, everybody. Saman and Joanna have just done their first joint online reading, live and online.
Past the first half of the book, the half of the book actually.
And we have, yes, we're beyond it now. Only 498 pages to go or something. I'm not very good at maths.
No, that can't be right. No, don't start.
I won't start. You are more than welcome, Anita.
Oh, this is sweet. Oh, we're getting a congratulations too.
Yay! We're so happy. We are once again, exactly, we are once again trying to organize one of our special readings, which hopefully this time will not be distorted by the gods at Facebook or by the gods of the heavens who fell down with rain upon us. But we will keep you posted as to when we are doing our next special reading. These things do take time, of course, to organize, and we have been a little bit busy over summer. So
please, if you haven't, like and follow at Vienna Theatre Project on Facebook, and we'll keep you posted.
Exactly, that's the way to say it.
Thank you all for tuning in.
Huh? Yes, exactly. Thank you all for tuning in. It's really fun to feed off each other's energy in the same way we do when we're sitting next to each other and sort of kick each other around the table. So, without further ado, from me, it's many, many blessings. Look after yourselves, take care of yourselves, and have a very, very beautiful evening. I suppose I will be back tomorrow evening to read you the next 500th and something other night.
We will see. One of us will be reading. Anita is saying you're dressed like twins. Yes, we are.
I
Anita.
know.
It's because we spend so much time together.
All we said is that we're dressed in black. That was it.
So you said your end of the reading. I'll say mine as usual. Remember to go inwards instead of outwards. Anything. See you soon. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.